Let there be light. Thank you. And there was light. We planned that. All right. Not really. Anyway, did y'all know it's December? You've heard? All right. And, December, people say this is the most wonderful time of the year. Maybe you feel that way. On the other hand, maybe you've got some mixed emotions about December. Maybe for you, well, it's okay, but there's a lot of things pulling in another direction, like sadness or stress. I mean, if you feel some sadness or some stress in December, I hope this series will be a help and an encouragement to you. The title of the series is Making Spirits Bright. Let's go back to the title. Let's focus on that just for Making Spirits Bright. It's a 3-week series, and now here are the 3 titles for the 3 messages. Christmas and Xmas, Christmas Sights, and the other reason for the season. Now today we're going to focus on the first one, Christmas and Xmas. Let me give you a little bit of background on Christmas. Christmas is a tradition, and it started in the 4th century. You know, for the first 300 years of the church, there was no Christmas. There was no holiday to celebrate the birth of Christ. But in the 4th century, the Roman church decided, let's start a new holiday to celebrate the birth of Christ. And when they started it, they called it the Birth Mass. Then later, it was the Christ Mass, from which we get our word Christmas. And they decided, let's do it on December 25th. It's not because they knew Jesus was born on December 25th. Nobody knows the date on which Jesus was born. But you can read different things about why December 25th was picked. There's different theories on why. But we can't say for sure Jesus was born on December 25th. So that's just a little background on Christmas. So let's get Christmas back up here all by itself. And let me remind you of what we focus on at Christmas time to think about and celebrate the birth of Christ. Here's a list. A baby, a manger, Mary and Joseph, angels, shepherds, and wise men. I think that's a pretty good list. We could extend it a little maybe, but those are the main words that focus on what we think about when we think about Christmas and the birth of Christ. Now, back when this tradition was started in the 4th century, almost as soon as it was started, the church and the culture said, let's add some other traditions to kind of make it more festive. Other traditions that really don't have anything to do with what we read in the Bible, but just to make the whole holiday more festive. And right up until today, we've got a whole lot of traditions that happen or that we think about or celebrate in December that really don't have anything to do with the list that you have up here. So a word that might be an umbrella word for these other traditions is the word I'm putting up here now, Xmas. Because it's not about Christ, it's about other things. And here's the list that goes under Xmas. Santa, reindeer, tree, lights, snow, bells, and presents. Now, if you look at those 2 lists, you can see that this list down here has nothing to do with this list up here. This is a whole different set of things that we think about and hear about and see in December, but nothing to do with what's up here. That's why I've tried to visualize it for you, that Christmas and Xmas are really 2 totally separate holidays. It just happens that we celebrate them at the same time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just pointing out the obvious, or what should be obvious, or what I think really can help us to think about what's going on in December. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us to celebrate Christmas. Now, certainly the Bible teaches us about the birth of Christ and how much we should appreciate and thank God that he sent his son, but there's nothing in the Bible about having a holiday on December 25th. There's nothing in the Bible about celebrating this holiday of Xmas as well. On the other hand, there's nothing the Bible says that these are wrong, that it's wrong to celebrate Christmas or it's wrong to celebrate Xmas. I don't think either one of them are wrong. In fact, I like them. I like Christmas. I like Xmas. They're okay. And if you celebrate both, that's fine. But here's what concerns me in my own life, and I think in our culture, in the church and in our culture, is it's real easy to put Xmas over Christmas. That we get so focused on Xmas that Christmas kind of takes a back seat to Xmas. And I don't think you want that. You want Christmas to be over Xmas because it's about Christ. So I say all that to say this is the bottom line of the message today. Here it is. To make your spirit bright, put Christmas over Xmas. You don't have to do away with Xmas, just let Christmas be more important to you than Xmas. So if you're going to put Christmas over Xmas, and I hope you agree that that's a good idea, here's a couple of questions. How do you do that? And the second question is, what does that look like? What does that look like to put Christmas over Xmas? Well, I don't just have my own thoughts. I have thoughts from the Bible about this. I think we learn how to do this from the example of the wise men in Matthew chapter 2. You've heard of the wise men. We read about them in Matthew 2. I think they give us a good model to follow about how to make our spirits bright. Because when we read about the wise men, you're going to see some men with some spirits that were just lit up. They were so bright and filled with joy. And we can learn from them and follow their example to experience, I think, the emotion that they felt that first Christmas. All right, let's go and see what we read about the wise men, starting in Matthew 2, verse 1. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. Notice they came from the east. I'll talk to you about what that means. What does it mean by the east? Jerusalem is the capital of the Jews, the nation of Israel. And before I go any further, I want to just see if we're on the same page here. Can you tell me how many wise men there were? How many wise men were there? Yeah. Some of you answered 3, and some of you didn't answer because you're thinking that's a trick question. Because for many people, the obvious thing, why are you even asking? We all know it's 3. Some of you know it was a trick question because I'm just sorry, I'm just going to burst your bubble. Some of you here today, we don't know if it was 3. But wait a minute, it's on all the Christmas cards. There's always 3. And there's always 3. In every manger scene I've seen, there's been 3. How could it be that there aren't 3? Well, this is the only clue that we have here as wise men. So what's the minimum number? Good, you're thinking. There couldn't have been 1. There had to be at least 2. What's the maximum number? You don't know, and I don't know. There could have been 3. There could have been 20. Could have been 50. I don't know how many there were. If you want it to be 3, you just hang on to it. Don't let me ruin your Christmas with these crazy thoughts. But anyway, they were wise men and they came from the east. Let me show you probably an idea of where they came from. You know, here's Jerusalem over here. They came from the east, and that's the city of Babylon over there in the east. It's in modern-day Iraq. And it could be that they came from the area of Babylon, which is modern-day Iraq. They could have been even further east, which would have been Persia or modern-day Iran. We don't know, but it was somewhere over there in the east. And it was a long way away. I mean, that's 900 to 1,000 miles over there. So how did they get from the east to Jerusalem? 747, Amtrak, Greyhound, a Chevy or a Ford? Somebody told me after the second service it was a Honda because they came in one accord. I don't think so, but if that guy believes it, that's fine. The Christmas cards say they came on two-cylinder camels, right? They came on camels with two humps. But we don't know if they came on camels. Maybe they came on horses. Maybe they walked. I don't know, but one thing I do know, that trip from the east to Jerusalem was dusty and dirty and difficult. It was for anybody that traveled for 1,000 miles in that day on land. It was tough, it was hard, it was difficult, but boy, they were determined to come all the way from over there to here because they were looking for Jesus. We know that because of what they say when they get to Jerusalem. Here's what they say. Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. And there's a lot to think about up here. They knew that this child was the King of the Jews. He was born King of the Jews. How did they know it? Because they saw his star in the east. Now, we need to think about what did they see? What does it mean they saw a star in the east? Well, on the Christmas cards, it's a star up in the sky. And they saw this bright star in the sky. Apparently, that's the message that I picked up from Christmas cards and manger scenes. It was a star in the sky. And what else could it be? Because it's the word star, and that's what we think of when we think of the word star, is a star in the sky. But I want you to think with me for a moment. That word star can mean a bright, shining light. The glory of God. We saw the glory of God. They're saying that as they say star. We saw this bright, shining light. It doesn't mean it was in the sky. It was a bright, shining light. Now, this shouldn't be too strange to you because think about it. You know the story in Luke about when Jesus was born, what happened with the shepherds? What did they see? The glory of the Lord shone round about them. Remember that in that part of the Bible? When Jesus was born, there was a bright, shining light that appeared in the presence of the shepherds. And then an angel spoke to them. The bright, shining light got their attention, and an angel spoke to them and told them about the birth of Jesus. And I think that's what happened out there in the east with the wise men. There was a star, but don't think star in the sky. Think bright, shining light, the glory of God in their midst. And most likely an angel appeared to them and told them that the King of the Jews has been born. And you go to Jerusalem and look for him. And they say, we've come to worship him. And what that means is they know he's more than just a king. If they came to worship him, he's God. Because it's wrong to worship a man. It's wrong to worship an angel. It's only right to worship God. God is the only one deserving of worship. So they were told, I believe that a messenger came to them when the bright, shining light appeared in their presence and told them about this king, this God who has come to the earth in the form of a man. Now, I don't mean to burst your bubble about that the star isn't a star in the sky. If you want it to be a star in the sky, that's not going to, we're good, okay? I don't care if you agree with me on that or not. But if you want to learn more about what I said about the star, I want to encourage you to go on, you can look it up. A guy named Ken Boa, B-O-A, did a great message on the Star of Bethlehem. It's a very good message, and if that kind of thing interests you, go look for it. Ken Boa, the Star of Bethlehem. All right. Now, after they make this question, now what I want you to see here is that they're looking for Jesus, right? I mean, where is he? We've come to worship him. We're looking for Jesus. Can you help us to find him? So here's what happens next. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. Now, he went to the chief priests and scribes because he knew they knew the Bible, the Old Testament, and he hoped that they could see in the Bible where the Christ was to be born, and sure enough, they knew where it was because they said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, but you, Bethlehem, out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." So they knew exactly where the Christ was to be born, right down the road in Bethlehem. In fact, let's go back to the map. Here's Jerusalem. Here's Bethlehem. Now, on this map, they gave it some separation, but if we were to actually put it to scale, Bethlehem is so close to Jerusalem compared to that whole map that Bethlehem is just right next door. It's just 5 miles down the road. So we're going to see that the wise men left Jerusalem and went to Bethlehem because they were told that's where the Christ is to be born. And I'm wondering, and I can't help but believe that on their way to Bethlehem, the wise men said to each other, "What's the matter with those scribes and Pharisees, or the scribes and chief priests? You know, they knew it in the Bible that the Christ would be born to Bethlehem, and we've been told that the Christ has been born. We came 1,000 miles to get down to here, and they can't go 5 miles. What's the matter with those guys?" But that's a whole nother subject. Because they were looking for Jesus, and they were determined to find him. And sure enough, on their way to Bethlehem, here's what happened. No, before that, I want to tell you this. I got ahead of myself. To make your spirit bright, put Christmas over Xmas by looking for Jesus. What we learned from the wise men is they went out of their way to look for Jesus. They went 1,000 miles to look for Jesus until they could find him. And what a great example they are to us. That to really make your spirit bright here in December, do what they did. Look for Jesus. Well, how do you look for Jesus? Let me tell you something. Every one of you sitting in the room this morning, I think you know what I'm talking about because you showed up at church this morning. Why did you show up at church? Well, I think because you're looking for Jesus, aren't you? I mean, why are you here? Because you want to get closer to God. You want to let God know how much you love him. You want God to speak to you and touch your heart. I mean, you're here because you want to grow closer to Jesus. So in December, keep it up, what you've done this morning. Look for Jesus. Just by coming to church, that's a good way to look for him and to grow to know him and to worship him. But it's not just on Sunday morning. During the week, you look for Jesus when you call out to him in prayer. You look for Jesus when you open up the Bible and read about Jesus and read about God and what he has to say to you. So you can be like the wise men at Christmas. To make your spirit bright, you can look for Jesus. So let's summarize what we've seen so far. Christmas is about looking for Jesus. That's what Christmas ought to be about, is looking for Jesus. Now let's compare Christmas to Xmas. What are you looking for in Xmas? You're looking for presents. Some of you are, many of you are right in the middle of that. You're looking for presents. You're going to the stores or you're going online and you want to buy a present or 2 or 3 for people that you love. You're looking for presents. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But all I'm saying is, to make your spirit bright, make sure that you're not so focused on looking for presents that you miss out on looking for Jesus. While you're looking for presents, be sure to stay in touch with and keep looking for Jesus to grow closer to him, and that'll make your spirit bright. All right, let's keep learning from the wise men. Here's what happens next. When they heard the king, they departed. And behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. Now I'm going to go back and talk about that star a little bit. Where is the star in this verse? Is it up in the sky? No, it's before them. It's not up there, it's in front of them. They're following the star that's in front of them, leading them to the place where Jesus is. And sure enough, the star came and stood over where the young child was. Over the place where the young child was. It wasn't up in the sky. If it was up in the sky, there's no way to locate what's under that star. Well, it could have been, there's no place to focus. But it was the bright, shining light. It was the glory of God that went before them and stood over the place where the young child was. So, got to remember, they saw a star in the east. They get to Jerusalem, they're on their way to Bethlehem, and that star appears again. That bright, shining glory of God appears to them again. How did they feel when they saw that? Well, we don't have to guess. Here's what we're told. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. Don't miss all those words. Did they respond with joy? Yep. Well, no. It was great joy. Was it great joy? Yeah. No. It was exceedingly great joy. Now, those are some happy guys. They could have said, well, they rejoiced. Could have said they rejoiced with joy. But he said they rejoiced with great joy. No, they rejoiced with exceeding. They were so happy and excited because they were about to see Jesus. Here's what we learn from them next about how to make your spirit bright. To make your spirit bright, put Christmas over Xmas by rejoicing over Jesus. What does that look like? Well, I just heard it about 15 or 20 minutes ago listening to you sing. I was sitting up here at the front just listening to you sing. It was exciting to me because I feel like you were rejoicing in that moment, in those moments that you were singing. Singing about Jesus and what the meaning of the songs were and how you were thinking about that God sent Jesus for you to die for you and to save you and to give you everlasting life. And you were rejoicing as you sang. Keep that up through December. Not just here on Sunday morning, but through the week as you hear those songs on the radio or wherever. Connect, think about what the words are saying and rejoice in those words. Rejoice when you talk to God and just thank Him for sending Jesus. And just let Him know how happy and glad you are for what He's done for you. Rejoice because of Jesus. And you'll be following the example of the wise men. And that'll make your spirit brighter in December. So let's go back to our summary page where we see that Christmas is about, from the wise men, Christmas should be about looking for Jesus and rejoicing because of Jesus. Compared to Xmas, where we look for presents, and what do we rejoice? We rejoice because of presents. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it happens, and it's okay to rejoice because of presents. Christmas Eve is the one night of the year that's the hardest for children to go to sleep, generally speaking. Not all children, but many. Because they're just so excited and trying to anticipate getting up in the morning and seeing what's out there. It's the hardest night for children to go to sleep. And in the morning, it's the hardest morning for parents to sleep in. If you have kids, or if you were a kid, I was a child, maybe you were too, you know what I'm talking about. Mom, Dad, can we get up now? No, it's 3 a.m., go back to bed. Mom, Dad, can we get up now? No, it's 3:30, go back to bed. Finally, at 5, Mom and Dad, can we get up now? Well, we might as well. Let's get up. Kids come out, see what's there. Oh, look what I got. Look at this. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so excited. Do those kids have joy? Yep. Great joy? Yep. Exceeding great joy? Well, in many cases, yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. That's a happy thing. That's a fun thing. I want to suggest to you, in the midst of rejoicing because of presents, in December. Be sure not to let that overtake rejoicing because of Jesus, because that's way more important and helpful to making your spirit bright. All right, there's one more thing we can learn from the wise men, so let's get back to the story in Matthew. Excuse me. When they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. And when they opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So I want to show you a picture from some children's curriculum that I have that I think pictures what we just read. So just look at that picture. Think about it for a moment. And for some of you, you're thinking, there's something wrong with that picture. That picture's not right. Is that Jesus? Yeah, I think it's supposed to be Jesus, but that's no baby at all. And that's not a stable. He's not lying in a manger. This is a house. I mean, there's Mary and Joseph, and there's the wise men, but there's something wrong with that picture. Well, I want to suggest there's nothing wrong with that picture. Let's go back and see what we just read in Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. Oh, the wise men, when the wise men came to see Jesus, he was in a house. When the wise men came to see Jesus, he wasn't a baby who had just been born. He was a young child. And you can read in Matthew 2 where later, this is the dark side of this story, the King Herod, who the wise men met when they were looking for Jesus, he inquired of the wise men when the child was born, and according to what they told him, he had all of the babies in Bethlehem killed, 2 years and younger. That means that Jesus wasn't a newborn baby. He was somewhere under the age of 2. In fact, for insurance, Herod went up to 2. My guess is Jesus might have been a year old by the time the wise men got there, or a year and a half. But Herod said, I'm going to make sure I take them all out because I don't want another king. I'm the king. I want them all out. But the reason I'm bringing that up is to confirm the age of Jesus. He wasn't a newborn baby when the wise men came to see him. So let's go back to the picture. This is the biblically accurate picture. He's in a house and he's a young child. He's a toddler. So that presents a real problem for a lot of you here in this room, because in your house, you have a manger scene. And it might look like this. Okay, what do we have here? We have a stable. We have a manger. There's the baby in the manger. Over here, well, here we have Mary and Joseph. We have the shepherds. But there's the wise men right after Jesus is born. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that's not biblically accurate. So what are you going to do about it? You want a biblically accurate manger scene? What are you going to do about it? Well, I'll tell you what you can do. You take those wise men, you probably have 3 of them, to another room. And if you really want to be biblically accurate, take them to the neighbor's house, because they need to be 1,000 miles away. Okay? Here's what else you can do. Live with it, and don't worry about it, because it's okay. If you want the wise men to be there, it's fine. I don't think God will be mad at all. Let's go back to the picture. What are they doing when they come? They're bringing these gifts to Jesus. And that's what we read earlier. Here's where the verse tells us that. They opened their treasures and they presented gifts to him. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They did that to show their love and their gratitude and their worship, because in the verse previous it says they came to worship him, and this is how they worshiped him, by giving gifts to him: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So what can we learn from the wise men to make our spirits bright? Now I want to emphasize again, these are happy men, right? Their spirits were bright. I already went over that. They rejoiced with exceeding great joy. They were looking for Jesus. They rejoiced because of Jesus. And now they're just giving gifts to Jesus out of their love and happiness and gratitude. So what can we learn from their example? Well, here it is. To make your spirit bright, put Christmas over Xmas by giving gifts to Jesus. By giving gifts to Jesus. Well, what's that look like? Well, let me tell you this. In December, the giving at our church is the best it is all year round. We receive more gifts, financial gifts, to the church in December than any other month of the year. Why is that? Well, some would say it's because of taxes. Maybe that's part of it. But I really think the other part of it is because God's people tend to have a spirit of giving and worship and gratitude at this time of the year, that they just want to give gifts to Jesus. And the way to do that tangibly is giving gifts to where Jesus is at work, which is through the local church. And I want to suggest to you that's a way to put Christmas over Xmas, is do what the wise men did. Give gifts to Jesus. Now let's go back to our table here, our chart. Christmas, if we're to follow the example of the wise men, should be about looking for Jesus and rejoicing because of Jesus and giving gifts to Jesus. Compared to Xmas, where we look for presents, rejoice because of presents, and finally, we give gifts to others. And that's a good thing. Xmas is a good thing. Christmas is even better. So I want to suggest to you that while you're celebrating Xmas, please let Christmas be the priority in your life. Look for Jesus, rejoice because of Jesus, and give gifts to Jesus. Okay, so we started the series today. The title of the series is Making Spirits Bright. Here's what we've learned. We've learned from the wise men in Matthew chapter 2. And let me say it one last time, the bottom line of what we've learned from them today. Here it is. To make your spirit bright, put Christmas over Xmas. How do you do that? By looking for Jesus, by rejoicing over Jesus, and by giving gifts to Jesus. All right, I want to mention that about a month ago I did a message on the war in Israel. I keep putting bulletins out. Here's the bulletin from that Sunday, and they just keep getting taken, and I love it. We'll just keep printing more, but there's more out there. Also, I want to encourage you, if you want to know more about what the Bible says about what's coming, I recommended John Clace's book, The Impending Apocalypse. We've just had a hard time keeping them out there on the table. We got another load in this week, and they're out there. I hope there's some left when you leave if you've been looking to pick up the book. Maybe they won't be sold out by the time you get out there. In the first service, I mentioned that might make a good Christmas gift, and I think what happened is the first service, people bought them all so you couldn't buy them, because I think that connected with some people. Oh, that would make a good Christmas gift. But anyway, if we run out, we'll get more. So, Making Spirits Bright, we'll pick it up next week. I'm going to close in prayer. And if you have a question about today's message, come on up, and I'll try to answer your question. Or if you just want to come up and introduce yourself, I'd love to meet you. Let's pray. Father, you know what goes on in our lives in December as individuals and as families. These are good times, but in some cases, these are hard times. There's a lot of sadness in some homes. There's a lot of stress in many lives. And Father, you know that, and I pray that you would help us through December to make our spirits bright, Thank you for the example of the wise men. Help us, Father, in the midst of the sadness and the stress to look for Jesus and to rejoice because of Jesus and to give gifts to Jesus in a way that would make you happy and make us happy. Thank you for hearing our prayer, and thank you for the way that you'll answer. Amen. Thanks for coming. Hope to see you next week.